Oh, here we go.
I was working for them.
It's okay. We
It
we
could
can
be our
see you and
bad
hear
weather
you.
here. We've got winter storms at the moment. It's pouring rain, and even our satellite is down. So it's probably my internet at this end.
Yeah, probably. You need to probably hold a piece of string a bit tighter.
Well, let's give it a go.
Michael, say that again.
Let's give it a try.
Let's give it a try. So tell us a little bit about your background, if you would, how you sort of got interested in building droids in the first place. And obviously, I know that you are involved in farming and stuff like that. So would you tell our lovely audience here a little bit about your background, please?
So I grew up loving robots. I'd get home after school and I'd watch episodes of Lost in Space, and I saw movies like Forbidden Planet had Robbie the Robot in it. So I love robots from the time I was very young. Made a lot of cardboard cutouts and things like that. And then, of course, Star Wars comes along. I'm 11 years old, and instantly R2D2 was my favorite. And so that kind of started me down that path. Although I didn't build an R2D2 until I found the R2 Builders Club in 2001, and spent 2.5 years building an R2D2. And from there, it expanded into other things. I started coordinating our local builders group meets with Lucasfilm when we started doing Star Wars Celebration. And so because of that, I got to know their events team, and they pulled me in, and I started making appearances with my R2D2, and then eventually started building for them.
So from what I remember, wasn't there some sort of issue with one of the droids actually owned by ILM, and they asked you to come and fix it, and that's how you got your foot in the door?
Yeah, so Lucasfilm, the events team, had built an R2D2. They had one built. It was never in the movies. It was made simply for public appearances and commercial work, things like that, because they didn't want to take the actual R2D2s out. At that point, they felt they were too valuable, and they were in the archives, and they didn't want to restore them and bring them out into the public. So they had this one built, and they had used it for several years, and it gave them all sorts of trouble. It was made by a prop shop down in Los Angeles, and Mary Franklin, who was head of the time, coordinated fan relations, asked if I would come and look at it. So I thought, well, I'll get to go up and see Lucasfilm and spend a day there and maybe poke around this R2. So I repaired it, got it running. They were really happy, and it snowballed from there, because immediately following that, Dave Filoni wanted to have a new droid built. He had this series that he was working on, and he wanted to have one built that he could use for promoting the television series. And he wanted to build one, he said, before the R2 builders got wind of it and built 100, which has sort of come to pass. It took a little longer than he thought, but there are quite a few choppers out there now. A few in the UK, I believe.
Yep.
But yeah, that really got my foot in the door.
Excellent. So from what I remember as well, you took your chopper, which was put together quite quickly to showcase at an event, and Dave Filoni actually came down and had a look at it himself.
Yeah, so we finished it, and they decided right off the bat they wanted to take it to the Nuremberg Toy Fair in Germany. And so we literally put it in the crate the day I delivered it. We showed it to the team that worked on Rebels. Dave Filoni came down and looked at it, and then we put it in a crate, and we hopped on an airplane, and we flew to Germany. And that was really its first outing, and we hadn't tested anything. And there were a few little problems along the way, things we had to fix on site because it was untested and it was built in a hurry. But yeah, that was our first time out. And then we came back to the States, and we started making appearances in Los Angeles. We met the cast, and we did some interview work, and then we flew to Florida. They had Star Wars weekends still in Orlando in Disney World, and so Chopper was in the parades, and there was a stage show, and yeah, we had a lot of fun with that for several years. We did Star Wars weekends.
It sounds like an awful lot of fun.
I can't hear you. You're really quiet.
So, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Barely.
Okay.
So there you are.
You've obviously built droids that have appeared in films and TV series, but what would be perhaps your favorite build?
Oh, probably what's behind me, the probe droid. I always wanted a probe droid since I saw Empire Strikes Back. Took 40 years to get around to building. Somebody had to make 3D files, which UK builder Moog created the files for this, and that allowed me the opportunity to build it. And originally it was supposed to be in Kenobi, believe it or not, but they wanted to shoot out desert, and it was going to be way too hot. It's 3D printed PLA, and it was 120 degrees out in the desert. It was about 140 storage containers they had, and I said, no, we can't do that. It wouldn't survive. So we missed out on that shoot, and they wound up animating that. But then we were working on droids. We built 9 droids for season 3 Mandalorian. And so during that process, they asked me, they said, do you still have the probe droid, and what's the status of it? And they said, we've rewritten a scene where there was a droid that was going to deliver a message. And originally, I think it was going to be a much smaller droid, a flying droid of some sort. And they thought, how cool would it be to have an Imperial probe droid? So that's how we got pulled into that. And because I was the one who knew how to operate it, they pulled me in, and that's how I was able to drive it on set. So that was certainly a highlight for me.
And did you drive some mouse droids around as well?
No, the mouse droid. So the mouse droid was the first thing I had in any of the series. That was in episode 6 of season 1 when they're on the prison ship. I just delivered it. I delivered it, handed it to someone, and never got to go even inside the gates of the studio. It was literally a handoff on the side of the street. But yeah, that was the first thing I built that was in a series. Other than Chopper, of course, Chopper was in Rogue One. But I wasn't there for that either, unfortunately.
Yeah, that was all filmed in the UK, that particular scene, wasn't it? I think, with Chopper.
Yeah, all at Pinewood.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, you've kind of answered this, I guess. I was going to ask you what your proudest moment is, perhaps not related to film, something outside of film.
I got called down to Hollywood. Lucasfilm said, "Can you come down for a couple days?" And they wouldn't tell me what it was. They said, "We need you to drive R2-D2," and I said, "Oh, I can bring it." "No, not yours. It's another one." And so I got down there and found out it was the episode 7 premiere in Hollywood, and it was the R2 that Oliver Steeples and Lee Towersey had built for episode 7. And yeah, that's certainly a highlight, because that was still to date, that was the largest premiere in Hollywood. 3 city blocks. It was all undercover, under tents, and it was just a huge undertaking. And we were the very first ones on the red carpet. We went out with Chris Bartlett, who was C-3PO, and yeah, that's unmatched.
It sounds absolutely amazing. When you've built a droid for Lucas, what happens to it afterwards? Does it come back into your sort of property, or is it held then by Lucas or Disney?
Yeah, everything that we have built, either for Lucasfilm or Disney, they stay there. I built a bunch of droids for the theme parks. They live in the theme parks. The droids I built for Lucasfilm specifically, they keep them at headquarters. They're in San Francisco, and we have a mouse droid there, and Chopper, and R3A3. And then the things we built for the shows, they have a huge warehouse, and the warehouse for season one, they didn't have a budget to build a lot of props. So if you notice, most of the droids are recycled Pinewood droids. They ship them over, and they're still, many of them are still there in storage at Manhattan Beach in near Los Angeles.
So I happen to know there was you were involved in driving an R2 for a TV show. It was like America's Funniest Videos show or something like that. Tell us the story about that if you remember.
That was Chopper. Yeah. Chopper was in America's Funniest Home Videos. We did the Queen Latifah show. We did a Disney kid show called Gamer's Guide, and we made lots of appearances with a variety of droids, mostly Chopper in the early days, and then later on, I was brought in to drive the BB-8 that Lucasfilm owns, that one of the Pinewood BB-8s, and so myself and Chris Sanders drive that one. I don't know if I was even supposed to say that, but keep that a secret. But yeah, we drive the BB-8s here in the States for TV commercials and red carpet appearances, and for the high profile things, they've brought Lee in, like for the Oscars, that was Lee Towersy driving. And for a few other red carpet events, they've had Matt Denton and Joshua Lee come over from Pinewood Creature Effects. But for the lower level appearances, they let me drive.
So outside of the Star Wars universe, what would be your favorite droid or robot from any sort of other film or franchise? I think I know the answer to this.
Yeah, let's see if I can get over here. Let me turn this around. Let's see. I've never used this Kindle before for video, so I'll just do it the old-fashioned way. So this would be my favorite non-droid is Wally, if you can see him. Most proud of him because he was sketch built. It is entirely hand built from top to bottom, and we've actually done a lot of appearances with him as well. He was in the Disney show Pixar in Real Life, and he's made a few other appearances, and we've taken him to Pixar, which has been a lot of fun. I'd say my second favorite is in pieces behind me, and that's Robbie the robot from the movie Forbidden Planet. His head's over, if you can see, his head's over here, sitting on the floor at the moment. But yeah, I've been waiting for the last year, a little over a year now, and I'm hoping this will be the year we actually come. But that was one of the first robots I really.
See if we can get him.
Have I come back?
Oh, hang on.
Returned?
Yes, yeah, you're back with us again. Perhaps it was the wrong rain on the dish. So
yeah, it's like I said, the storms we're going through this week are terrible.
Would you say for you that droid building is a
Have I caught
hobby
up
or a
yet?
job or both?
Well, I mean, I do it now professionally for the last 10 years, but it's still kind of like a hobby. I mean, I still build droids for myself. You know, I'm working on an R4 P17, which is back there in the corner, which I've been working on almost 20 years. Embarrassingly. Got an old R&J dome from the Builders Club. And yeah, so I still work on personal robots for myself. I'm working on a Vincent, the movie The Black Hole. which for me, we just
Yeah,
finished
yeah.
a Maximilian last year, which was for a museum. Museum. It's a pizza place in Texas, but it's also a science fiction museum. It's a weird, Texas is a weird place, but that was another favorite of mine. I like the
Yeah,
big
did he
bad
manage to make
robots, the mean
Maximilian's?
robots.
Did he make his blade spin his arms?
So on that one, it was static. It was going to hang up on a wall, and they were worried about liability having stainless steel blades spinning. So not on that one. But if I build one for myself, yeah, it'll have to have the spinning blades and a little bit of movement. Maybe make it float. Have to have all the sounds. He's got those really neat, cool sounds when the head moves.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I'm going to open it up to the floor. Has anyone got a question they'd like to ask Michael? Yeah, Louisa.
Was Chopper easier to build than R2D2?
Did you hear that, Michael? Was Chopper easier to build than R2?
Oh no, Chopper again was entirely hand fabricated. There were no plans. Lucasfilm, the best they could do is give me some drawings, some isometric drawings of it, and they gave me a chart that had the scale. So they had R2D2 with a little chopper next to it. Well, I know how big R2 is, so I just scaled their drawings up. I had a local print shop scaled them up to the right size and just started from there. And I had 3 months to build it. It was very stressful because it was just made out of wood and styrene and anything I could get my hands on. And so, yeah, that definitely my most challenging build.
Thanks, Louisa. Anyone else got a question they'd like to ask Michael? Gary?
Yeah, just wondering, is it easier to have the 3D printing, resin printing to actually get a droid?
The question was, is it easier now with 3D printing and resin printing to get a droid put together?
Absolutely. Yeah, 3D printing. I was very resistant 3D printing early on. I felt like it was cheating a little bit, because I made everything by hand. And once I got onto it, I have now, I think, 9 3D printers total, 8 that are currently working and a 9th one that's on the way, a really big, large format. But yeah, the probe droid would have been nearly impossible because I would have had to have made all that in probably a wood frame with styrene on it or carved it out of foam or something. But to have accurate files that I could just print and then glue, a lot of sanding. The work shifts from designing and fabricating to tons and tons of sanding, which I'm sure Steve knows all about. But yeah, it completely changed my life. I got a new Wally, so you can see if I can get in here. There he is. So this Wally is going to be entirely 3D printed as opposed to being handmade. And the club files are based on what we did early on. And so, yeah, I can knock out a Wally in really a few weeks as far as the big structural parts. Don't have to cut things out of MDF and plywood anymore and try to fit it together and pull my hair out. I used to have a lot of hair, but that's what building will do to you.
Yeah, same here. Thanks, Gary, for the question. Anyone else got a question?
I was just wondering, how did they Lucas come to you?
Yeah.
And they say, right, they selected you to build a certain droid. Do they pay you for the droid, like a set amount for the droid, or you pay for the time it takes?
Okay, the question was, when Lucas come to you to build a droid or whatever it might be, do they come to you and sort of offer you a set price for the droid, or is it based on time and materials?
No, I have to put a bid in, like any vendor. They'll come to me and say, we'd like you to build, whatever it is. And then I have to budget for it and send that back to them. And sometimes they'll say, okay, that's fine. And there have been a few times they say, no, that's a little too expensive. And so then we discuss materials and abilities. Sometimes they want droids. Like the original Chopper, they wanted the dome to tilt and do all these things. I was able to get the dome arms to work, and the little camera pops up, and the body arm popped out, but I could never get the head. I couldn't do all of that in 3 months. So actually, his 10th birthday just came up, and they asked me a couple months ago, could you add that? So, at this point, they could budget for it, and I spent a couple months trying to tinker with it and modify it. And so now he's completely realized to what they wanted originally. The head moves in the way they want, and it's got a whole new radio, a new sound system. And back then, I had, I think, 5 or 6 chopper sounds. Well, now there's over 100 chopper sounds. And but yeah, to answer your question, it's always based on materials that I have to use. We have to figure in how many hours of labor and the complexity of it. Sometimes the technology doesn't exist, and I look at the droids we built 10 years ago versus now, and the control systems are radically improved, sound systems. So we can do things a little more sophisticated for a little less money, which I appreciate, because it's always whatever their budget is. The same thing with building for the TV shows. They, believe it or not, they have limited budgets. They have to do some incredible things on very small budgets. And each year, as Mandalorian has gained popularity, every year they give them a little bit more money. So season 3 had probably 10 times what they had for season 1. But even then, they'll say, okay, we can only operate within this budget. Can you make X number of droids for that? And the answer is always yes.
Great question. Thank you. Has anyone else got a question or another question they'd like to ask? Yeah.
So, did you start building droids because you saw them in Star Wars and you fell in love with them? Or was it, I want to build a droid, and then you were influenced by Star Wars?
Did you hear that one? Okay, so the question was, and forgive me if I get this slightly wrong in paraphrasing, but did you build your first droid or get into droid building because of Star Wars, or did you always want to build a droid and Star Wars kind of influenced your building?
Wow, that's a first for that question. I was already building droids. I love droids to begin with. Seeing Star Wars certainly motivated me to build a droid, but it took 20 years for me to actually do it. So and that was really just because I stumbled upon the R2 Builders Club online. The internet was very different in 2001. The R2 Builders was just a chat group on Yahoo, and had I not found that, I probably still wouldn't have a droid. It was literally just by somebody saying, hey, you like R2D2s, there's this R2 Builders Club, and that was my gateway to everything. Just a happy accident.
Cool. Anyone else got a question?
Are there any dream projects that you haven't been able to do yet in the future?
So the question was, are there any dream projects that are perhaps coming up, or things that you haven't been involved in that you'd like to be involved in the future?
I would love to be part of the Mandalorian movie. But no telling. They're very tight about that. People seem to think that I know things. I really know absolutely nothing. They were talking about gearing up for season 4, and we thought we might get a shot at that. And then they made this announcement about in the fall they're starting on this Mandalorian movie. And so I have no idea what's going on at the moment, if they're going to still do a season 4 and then a movie, or if it's all being spun into one thing. But yeah, I would love to work on a movie. That looks like it'd be really an amazing experience. And I know, talking to Lee Towersy, often, he's worked on more films than any droid wrangler, that's for sure. Even Don Bees, who worked on the original, he worked on the prequel trilogy. He worked on just the 3 films. Lee now has worked on 6 films, 5 films, and the TV series, worked on Andor. It just sounds like it'd be a lot of fun.
Cool. Any other questions? Anyone else got anything they'd like to ask? How's the orange crop going? Maybe.
It's good. Yeah, we're right in the middle of that. Yeah, a lot of people are always confused when I say, well, I'm a citrus farmer that builds droids. And, like the Lucasfilm don't understand. They're like, you live on a farm? And I don't know what they think. They think I'm, riding around or something, but milking cows, which we don't have animals. But, and then, of course, the farmers, they're like, you have robots in your garage? And they're usually indifferent. They have no interest whatsoever. Most of them have never even seen Star Wars, I think. Shocking.
Blasphemy! Yeah, that was met with a universal groan in here anyway. Has anyone else got
we've had a few people
that
have come in the shop that didn't know who R2D2 was, and that's shameful.
Yeah, I've noticed that a few times as well. Izzy, what's your question? Which one? B2? Is it the red one? Yeah. So the question is, how have you got any interest in building a B2 from Andor?
I would love to, but they're terribly complex. Michael Badley, who's a UK builder and brilliant engineer, has designed one. There's a B2 Builders Club, and I follow that with great interest. Fortunately, I just don't have the time that it would. There's too many projects in here right now, but I would love to have one. It's an amazing piece of technology. So much personality from this weird-looking box.
It's like an expanding box, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like a living accordion or something. But and Matt Denton and Joshua Lee, who actually built it, they designed the rolling BB-8, which that was kind of their greatest achievement. And Joshua said that the B2 was certainly the most complicated thing ever designed because it raises and lowers, it can tilt, there's sections that rotate, the omnidirectional drive system, and yeah, he said it had them scratching their heads for quite a while because they write these characters into the story, and then there's a conceptual artist who draws it up, and they say, oh, it can do this and this, and then they have to figure it out, and usually in a very short period of time. And amazingly, not surprisingly, he and Matt Denton, worked it out.
I'll when we finished, I'll tell these guys the little story when we held that auction about being able to actually have a look inside it. Do you remember that? Yeah,
I do.
Yeah,
that night they expected to get a few hundred pounds, and then it went wild.
It went
because of their generosity.
Just to have a look inside it. Just Matt Denton, who designed it, basically broke all protocol and said we were holding a charity auction. I was the host, and Matt came up and said, I'll let someone have a look inside B2, but no photos, nothing like that. And I think in the end it went for over £1,000.
Yeah.
Was it Michael Pearl?
Yeah, he spent several £1,000s that night.
Yeah,
very generous, and it all went to a good cause, by the way.
Yeah. It did.
Yeah, I
it
would
was
say
very,
the
very
UK droid builders raised more money than any single group I'm aware of. Maybe the 501st has raised more, but yeah, your group especially is just so generous.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. Has anyone else got a question for Michael? Oh, Louisa.
Was your talking like hand-built droid? Was that completed before they did the animated one for Rebels?
So was your droid completed before it appeared in the animated series on Rebels?
Oh, let's see. So yeah, I guess we had finished just before, because the series didn't come until 2014. Yeah, so we did have it finished before the animated series came out. When we went to the toy fair in Nuremberg, they already had all the Rebels toys out, all the action figures, and of course nobody knew what any of it was, and but people were excited anyway. But yeah, we did some of the first press in the spring of 2014 with the cast, when I didn't know who any of them were. And Freddie Prinze, he was a known actor here.
Have you got any plans to build a live action chopper now?
Yeah, there's one in the corner. He's over there.
Yeah, of course there is.
I still haven't finished my original, the animated series Chopper. So I'm kind of building them side by side, because I really like the design of the original, and I have nothing against the live action, but they made some color changes and some design changes. I understand making it look more real world, but some of the changes kind of mystified me a little bit. You know, I didn't see any reason to change colors, and he has this big yellow square on the front that's crooked. And it's supposed to be a patch. When I asked Dave Filoni about it, he said, "Yeah, it's a patch that they put on there." And I noticed when they made the live action, they straightened it, and there's nothing straight on Chopper. That was one thing that Dave told me. He said it's crooked and asymmetrical, and you know. So the idea that they kind of straightened it up and changed some things, that irked me, but that was a decision by the department, and Dave and his team approved it. So there you go.
Anyone else got any more questions? Any other questions?
Have there only ever made Star Wars droids from the film to TV, like none from the games? My personal favourite would be one from the Fallen Order games.
Okay.
And I just wonder if anyone he knows or has.
Well,
himself,
I can partially answer that myself anyway, but I'll pass the question on. So the question was, have you ever made droids that are outside of the film or TV, so such as video games?
So we once were offered a chance to make the BD-1, and we were too busy, and that got passed on to another builder, Chris Sanders, who is the other BB-8 operator I work with. Yeah, so I didn't get to do that. And oddly enough, that was a game done by Respawn. My middle son, Corey, worked at Respawn at the time. And so I think he recommended me. And then I just couldn't do it. We were under a huge load of work at the time. So I had to pass it up. But I would love to have made one, because I kind of like the BD-1s. They're very cool droids. And you've probably seen larger versions that have been wandering around the parks. They've made a remote controlled animatronic that is kind of based loosely on BD-1, but they call them duck droids or something like that.
And there's already
which I think the clubs are building, right, Steve?
Yep. Yeah, Alec in Australia's doing the electronics for it, and Michael Badley's doing the design. So yeah, those are going to be built by the public soon.
As per usual with the builders group, something will appear, and within 24 hours, somebody is already building it.
Yeah. And also another droid that was in Knights of the Old Republic, which is T3, and Oliver Steeples, who we had a chat with a few weeks ago, has built one. He's built a T3. I know there's a couple of HK7s in the UK as well. I think Dave Moog built those as well, or designed those. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
Before breathing quickly,
yeah.
Has there ever been a situation where you've had to really think outside the box to either find a solution to design or inside with the electrics, and you've had a eureka moment, like, oh, that's how to do it.
That's a
Or
great question.
use like a tennis ball for an eye. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, great question. So before 3D printing came along and you had to actually sort of do hands-on and brain-on thinking about how to build stuff, did you ever have some sort of like a eureka moment with a particular challenging problem that you suddenly found a way to make happen, perhaps using, I don't know, a household object or something?
Yeah, for Chopper, they wanted it to go from 2 legs to 3 legs, which, as you know, is a challenge. And I spent the first couple weeks making models, trying to figure it out. And so I was kind of proud of that we were able to work that out. And it could stand on 2 legs and drive around, and the center foot tucked up, kind of like on an airplane. It just sort of rolled up into the body. And I was proud of that. And then also when we did, a decade later, we did the R5 D4 that could do the same thing. And because it was really challenging. And at one time in the builders group, it was considered fantasy to have an astromech that could do that. But enough builders, devoted all of their time figuring it out, so that by the time we got around to the R5, there was technology that, available. But I've had that where, you're working in the shop, you're working long hours, and you're trying to figure something out. And then, you might sleep on it or wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh, I think I know how to do this. And I mean, there were times with Chopper where I literally went out 2 a.m. and worked on something because I had figured it out, just laying in bed. So it does happen. And it's very satisfying when it actually works.
Cool. Thank you. Any other questions in the room at all? David,
Yeah.
what's your next big project?
Well,
That you're allowed to talk about.
Probably, yeah. I'm building. There's a museum that wants a Wally, and so we're talking to them right now. And it would be a Wally that would be maybe interactive. It wouldn't drive around, but it would be interactive. We're also going to do the same thing, I think, with the Robbie museum wants. It's a robot museum back in Chicago that is animated. It's a statue behind a rope, but when visitors come in, they can control it. There'll be like a little, control panel that they can, make sounds and make the head move and arms move and things like that. So that's what we're currently working on. I don't know if we'll actually get to do it. It's like everything else, we submit proposals and bids and we'll see if they accept it. But those are potentially new things we're going to do. And then of course there are always new droid builds. So
Cool. Anyone else got a question? Any more questions? Yeah, Gary.
If it worked on a show, does it increase the amount of actually seeing it on the screen?
That's a great question. So if you've worked on a show, when you then see it on screen, does it sort of lose any of the magic because you've seen what happened in the background? You saw the puppeteers and whatever?
No, it's even better because with the droid, we shot in an alley, and so they had the walls of the alley built, but there was nothing in the background or up in the sky. It was just blue screens. And so we had, in our case, it was actually raining, and you really can't tell in the final, scene, but they had water, machines. And so it was raining on us all day. We're all in, little rain slickers trying to drive these droids. But when the episode came out, they have all the visual effects and their spaceships flying and the background and sound effects and all that. And they're radically different than being on set. So yeah, it was really fun to see. In fact, I think Steve was there when I saw that episode.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I was blown away.
Anyone else got a question before we let Michael go? We seem to have dried up with questions here, Michael. So if I can just take this opportunity to say thank you ever so much for giving up your valuable time. I'm sure if it wasn't for us, you'd probably have finished another droid by now. But if I can just ask everyone here to give Michael a massive round of applause. Thank you very much.
I'm covered in droid dust. I'm just sanding. Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. There were some questions that I have never heard before. So well done.
Excellent. Well, Michael, again, from me, it's a great pleasure even knowing you. So thank you again for giving up your time, and I'll see you very soon, mate.
Absolutely. Take care.
Bye.